focus work around transport hubs, so that public transport can bring people to a spot and all the work can be around that hub, and design housing in such a way as to encourage the use of bicycles and walking, and reduce the need for the use of the private motor car, and use public transport as much as possible. So there are lots of things we can do to reduce consumption of energy and thereby mitigate energy efficiency. There's 100 ways we could improve energy efficiency. If we California leads the world in some energy efficiency research. The Energy Commissioner in California, Art Rosenfeld, is a world leader in clever ways to reduce the use of energy and still have the same lifestyle. So there's lots of mitigation strategies that Sri Lanka could adopt, and adaptation and mitigation can go hand in hand, and that is the best way forward. And as back to the education theme that I mentioned, when we teach children about the climate problem and we teach them about the need to adapt to climate change, we can also teach them how to live as well as they do or better, but use energy in a more efficient way.
Now, when talking about adaptation capacity, is adaptation capacity limited by poverty?
Yes, yes, it is. Everything is limited by poverty and by lack of education. So they are correlated, obviously. The rich and the well-to-do and the educated will adapt better. So education and lifting the standard of our people is in fact going to have an added benefit in the future, which is that they can be better adapted to dealing with the climate problem.
So does this also say that businesses have maybe a greater role in mitigating and adapting to climate challenge? And what is the role of the business as a key stakeholder in adapting to climate challenge?
One fundamental thing every business must do in the future is to look at its energy consumption plan and make efficient use of energy a central part of the business strategy. This is already happening in countries like Australia. It's all businesses more than a certain size, large businesses, are now forced to do an energy strategy, forced to report on every bit of pollution emissions that they commit, and so on. So there's no reason at all why Sri Lanka we couldn't start to do that voluntarily already. And you also begin to save money by being efficient in energy, because if you're saving energy, you're saving money. And if the price of energy rises in the future, then we will be able to make it a really economically sensible thing to do.
So once again, I think an important point to touch on, that is why I want to ask this question again, that how can actually Sri Lanka make climate change an engine of growth and a part and parcel of an economic strategy? If I ask in another way, can we make climate change an industry by itself?
Yes, there is. If you look at the internet, there are now journals being published called Climate Change Industry, Climate Change Business Journal, and so on. So there's a lot of focus on industries and skills related to climate change and adapting and mitigating climate change. So there's absolutely no reason why we can't do it. And we are likely to be less affected, for example, than India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan may have, our neighbors, giant neighbors, may have much bigger problems with climate change, with the loss of the headwaters of the Himalayan rivers and the loss of the monsoon. It'll affect us, but it may affect India much more than it affects us. Bangladesh could be inundated, and so on. So we may have opportunities to help our neighbors as well and make some money by doing so.
Right, Satis. So I think we touched upon like a gamut of issues from what is climate change, and you spoke about the stability that has existed in the period where the carbon emissions were almost static at 280 molecules per million, and now that it has gone to 397, and the increase in the carbon dioxide volume in the planet Earth is affecting us, and as to why we should worry about climate change. And we also started talking about the implications for Sri Lanka and how Sri Lanka's strategy should be one of more of adaptation but also mitigation in certain extents. And a very important point you mentioned was in the climate strategy for Sri Lanka, that Sri Lankan government has to take the leadership, and also it has to make it a cut across issue that is across all policies, not only environment, and also that climate change can be looked as an opportunity for Sri Lanka to identify new products and markets, because every adverse consequences can be turned into an opportunity with the right policy and right advocacy. So I think that is a very encouraging note for us to conclude the discussion, remembering what Stern said in the report, that climate change is the greatest market failure the world has ever seen. And as a result, there's a strong role for the government to play, and also business stakeholders, because their capacity for adaptation is not limited by poverty. On that note, Satis, thank you very much for joining us tonight at Roundtable.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much for watching us tonight. Do join us tomorrow at the same time. Have a lovely night.